Oh, yes, everybody, we are back. We are back. The Shaded Pixels podcast is live in your physics. Hello, everyone. Welcome, Shaded Pixels podcast show, where we break down video games to their shadings and pixels, topic by topic. And tonight's topic is epic grind. We're talking whether or not grinding in role-playing games is good, bad, in between, or just completely unnecessary. Ladies and gentlemen, I am one of your hosts, Bunny 3000. To my other direction, in that direction,
to my side,
to my side direction is Esteban Cuevas. How you doing, homeboy?
Hi, I'm doing really good. I'm getting used to the grind.
Getting you awesome. And of course, in the vertical direction, in one of that down that way, is my boy Shawn Heartbreak Kid Richards. How's it going?
It's going good. I'm glad that we had the revive handy so we could bring you back after last week.
Oh hell yeah. It was kid apocalypse in the Brown household last week. Daddy had to put down the band hammer on a couple of childrens. So, it took a little while, but it did happen. Everything's calm, back to normal in the Brown household. Thank God. Oh.
Well, that's good. Shawn missed being a power bottom.
He missed being on the bottom. That's disgusting. But yes, that works for some people. Hopefully that works for Shawn.
Shawn's like,
he's like, what did I just walk into?
We've been through this last week. At some point, I will just have, okay, there are no words. I'm just going to kind of fade out right
just
now.
Gonna go.
He just goes.
Esteban kind of falls out of a chair. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking role-playing games. I know a bunch of you have definitely played all types of role-playing games. It's probably standard that you know what grinding is, but in case you don't, would one of you gentlemen like to give kind of a layman's terms explanation of what we are considering grinding in this discussion?
Okay, well, I'll do it.
Yeah, go for it.
Grinding in regards to RPGs is typically referring to the battles that you have to do in those types of games, which are often random, and usually when you're going from one place to another, whether it be for story reasons or side story stuff, side quests, that type of thing, you will often run into a bunch of random battles, and grinding is referring to going through a bunch of those random battles just so you can up your experience points and level up and improve your stats, your skills, depending on how the game goes. Usually it's automatic, or sometimes you have to pick which ones you're going to update, like, for example, Dark Souls or something like that, or Final Fantasy 2, if you want to go really way back.
Any Final Fantasy, just about.
Yeah, but I mean, like, specifically where they're like, oh, you leveled up, pick which skill you want to upgrade.
You actually get
specifically.
I see what you're saying.
But, regardless of what your reward is going to be, usually you have to grind in order to get it, which means doing a bunch of battles, typically random.
Right.
Yeah.
My favorite thing I've always heard about a person's mentality when it comes to those random battles, or whenever it comes to the next checkpoint that you need to go to, whether it's a gauntlet full of enemies or it's a major boss battle. If it's at level 20, a lot of people are either, I'm level 10, I could take them. Well, that's just a suggestion, right? Or you like, oh, level 50. Well, time to grind to level 70 then. That way I can stomp this guy's butt. And that's basically the mentality that I have with that, is the fact that I tend to want to be overpowered. That way I can ensure my victory and not just, die in one hit from whatever it is.
Yeah.
So,
and it also depends on the game and how it's balanced, because like especially in like older RPGs like Dragon Quest / Warrior, if you're like one level off from them, like if a certain boss fight is level 20 and you happen to be level 19, you will get pulverized because between levels was a big difference back then.
So let me ask you this: what game was your first encounter with RPG grinding? If you can remember. I kind of have an idea what mine was, but
I guess it would be my very first RPG, which technically, and I kind of made this realization not too long ago, was actually not what I thought was my first RPG. I thought my first RPG was Final Fantasy VII, but no. Actually, it was Pokemon, which would very much count because, quite frankly, Pokemon is very grindy.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, Pokemon, specifically Pokemon Blue.
Okay. What about you, Shawn?
Pokemon Red, actually.
So there you go.
I was thinking about just like it. That's kind of where I got a lot of my, especially early on, because I don't know what starter you chose, but I chose Charmander, which for anyone who's played those early games, that is the worst starter that you could get for the first 2 gyms.
Yeah.
So not only do you need to make sure you fill your team roster up, but you need to grind so much to make sure you're powerful enough to beat those. That's why I have the mentality of I like to be overpowered to get through this, because I would go through Charmander. I would actually evolve him before I would face the first gym.
Wow.
To make sure that I would win. That's legit my strategy for Pokemon Red and Pokemon Fire Red in particular, is to evolve him into Charmeleon before I face that first gym to make sure I kick his ass to the ground.
And you make sure you get low kick or whatever it is he got so he can fight Brock.
Yeah, with Onyx and everything like that.
Yeah, and if you're leveling him up, that's level 16, and you get him at level 5, so you're grinding 11 levels just to begin the game. Damn, man.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, with that said, I have an admission to make.
Okay.
Probably the very first Pokemon game I've ever played was Pokemon Go.
Wow. Okay.
And with that said, the first role-playing game that I remember grinding on a computer, that I remember having to grind on, was probably Wizardry. If any of you guys know of that game.
I know of it. What happened was, real quick, my friend introduced me to RPGs. That's why I thought it was Final Fantasy VII at first.
Okay.
And then after that, I was like, oh, I didn't even know about this genre, even though technically I did, because I didn't think Pokemon belonged to that. But then after that, I was like, oh, I got to see what other RPGs are about. And then I went on RPG binge and played like the old Final Fantasies and Dragon Warrior, and I went back and I learned and played a whole bunch of stuff. So that's why like I'll know about Dragon Warrior and stuff like that. And yes, I have heard of Wizardry as well as and Ultima and stuff like that. So yeah.
Because like the very first Wizardry, I think is called, what is it called? I can't remember what like the title was, because each one of them had like a little title. But I remember it was black and white, no color. It was one of those games, if you remember like Bard's Tale, where you had the text listing of all your characters on one side with their names, their hit points, and like their level or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then on the bottom was where all the text would come up. But on the like top left corner was the graphical depiction of you going through the maze. so that you knew, oh, there's a wall over there, or there's a hallway over there, or there's a door over there, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And the thing I remember the most about Wizardry was that the grinding that you were trying to do was to make your like initial set of character classes into whatever I guess back then you called them elite classes. So like there was one that was like the ultimate elite class that was a ninja, but the only way that you could get it was you had to have either a fighter or a thief that was of evil alignment. And, as they went up levels, they had to reach a certain, their stats, their strength, their IQ or whatever had to reach certain values or whatever as they went up in levels. But there was no guarantee that, each one of those characteristics would go up every time you went up a level. It was always randomized or whatever. So or you would get cursed and your stuff would go down or something like that. So you'd have to keep grinding away to try to see if your fighter or your thief could get those values just so that you could turn them into a ninja. And then you'd have to rebuild their stats all the way up.
Yeah.
And I just remember, memorizing the maze to go to certain areas so that I would fight and get the most experience defeating certain monsters or whatever in that thing. But I remember spending way too much time. That was like one of the first things I remember in terms of just grinding away at levels and experience trying to get stuff. Excuse me.
RPGs are pretty much the oh god, what's the word I'm looking for? The successor to Dungeons and Dragons, and early RPGs like Wizardry were very, very Dungeons and Dragons.
All of them. Bard's Tale, they were all like clones of each other. They basically had the exact same framework. For a long time, that was what basically was the template for role-playing games back. It had the same graphic interface, and all of them looked the same for the most part.
Even like the very, very first Final Fantasy on the NES has a lot of those ideas still in it. You pick your class, you go through this adventure, you have to grind a lot, and even though it's technically hidden, you do eventually go up to the elite classes, and the fighter turns into a knight, and the thief turns into a ninja, and the monk turns into
samurai.
No,
that wasn't in Final Fantasy. They didn't have.
I know. Like the red, white, and black mage turn into red, white, and black wizards.
Right.
What does the monk turn into? I can't remember now.
Was it?
You sure there was a monk in it?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The very first one. Very, very first Final Fantasy on the NES.
See, I might have to look it up now. You got me curious. It's been a long time since I played that one too. But anywho, as we're looking that up, as we were saying before, RPGs, that was a part of the basis of RPGs because that was kind of the way adventures were run in tabletop D&D. You would have certain adventures or certain battles in between all of your story encounters that would basically allow for the characters in the adventures to be able to withstand whatever it was that was going to be at the very end of the adventure. Say just for generic sake, a dragon. You're not going to have your first level characters instantly wandering into a dragon's lair and trying to take down a dragon. It just doesn't happen. So the DM would, craft the story so that various things in between would prepare the adventurers to be able to handle the dragon at the end of the adventure.
Yeah.
So in computer games, they kind of simulated that. Kind of like Esteban was saying, as you would wander from area to area, you'd have randomized encounters with just slimes, bunnies, little small monsters or whatever to build up your character.
It's Final Fantasy, yeah.
Yeah, to build up your characters to a certain level so that by the time they got to the next city or whatever, and furthered the story along, they'd be able to handle whatever bosses or mini bosses were in those particular areas or regions. So it kind of became, standard fare for most RPGs to handle it in that manner. I think and for the most part, people that played those RPGs, they were used to it, so there were no complaints. That's just how things were. I think where the line was crossed in terms of games development and trying to bring more players to the table when it came to RPGs was when, in my opinion, is when you started seeing MMOs, where the intent was for you to play that game and only that game for hours and days on end. And with that kind of a concept and template, it is almost impossible to have a story that allows you for stuff completely different and engaging and interesting and arcing in terms of storyline to continue in that kind of environment, because you're just in there all the time. So there's no way that developers could write, stuff to actually happen for all that. So they kind of leveraged the old school RPG stuff. And I guess that's where you started seeing more focus on things like fetch quests. Hey, I lost my toothbrush. Can you go over 3 towns over to this random cave, fight some golems, and bring me my toothbrush? Thank you. I'll give you $2 million for that.
That must be one special toothbrush, because that thing's going to be dirty if it's been in the cave.
Yeah. I know, right? It's like, and eventually, as time goes on, you play various MMOs. That's what it feels like you're doing. You're talking to various people in the town. They lost something. They're missing someone. They want to make something, so you have to get all the components and everything. So, they send you off to various areas of the map, and you have to grind away doing those things or getting to those things, and then come back. I need 15 rabbit pelts so I can create this awesome sword. What? Crazy stuff like that you started seeing in RPGs. Yeah. What about you guys? What other, moments, in grinding have you noticed where some of that started changing from being commonplace to being a little bit ludicrous or absurd?
Before we go any further with that, the upgrade to the monk class in the original Final Fantasy is Master.
Oh, that's pretty simple. Sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. I am of two minds when it comes to grinding, because there is a part of me that believes that there has to be a better way of doing this now, because I feel like grinding has been part of RPGs for so long now that I feel like as a concept it should have been phased out already. We should have come up with something a little better. But at the same time, I also think that it's sort of a litmus test for how good your combat system is in an RPG, because if your battle system in an RPG is good, grinding is usually not a problem, because you enjoy the individual fights that you go through. And another reason also for this is you were talking about the ludicrous quests that you get in MMOs and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
To justify the grinding and everything, because the whole point is that you got to give them something to do,
right?
You got to get these people playing for, like you said, hours upon days on end,
right?
That also shows that I think grinding becomes more acceptable when you have a much more cohesive and strong story that's pushing you forward. I mentioned before Dragon Warrior, the very first one on the NES. I don't think that game aged well at all. And one of the reasons for that is because grinding in that game is the whole game. Literally, in the very beginning of the game, you're given the quest of go rescue my daughter from the king. Right? The king tells you, go rescue my daughter. That is all you do in that whole game. There's nothing else. You leave the castle. You go around in a spiral circle, literally, to get to the castle of the bad guy, who is literally just across the stream from the frickin' beginning of the game. Beat him, save his daughter, and then the game ends. The only reason that's stopping you is the way that the game is designed is as you keep going further and further, the enemies become too difficult for you to defeat, so you have to grind. Dragon Warrior 1 is literally the grind, the game. That's its whole game loop. And that's why it hasn't aged well, because you only have one story beat to do. Whereas, say, the first Final Fantasy, that's literally your first quest, and then that has the king then go, okay, we're going to build you a bridge so you can go onto the rest of the continent. And then more and more things happen. Oh, you got to go and get these mystic eyes. Oh, you got to fight these pirates that are at this port town. And then you keep going and going and going until you find the big quest, which is you have to get the 4 orbs of power, which represent the different elements and stuff. And there's different micro objectives to push you forward.
Yep.
And they're interesting-esque. I mean, I can see someone looking at the first Final Fantasy 1, the first Final Fantasy, and being like, this is kind of boring. But there are stuff to push you along. And something like Dragon Warrior 1 only has the one. Something like MMOs only have these small, minuscule things that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. I mean, like, there's stuff where, like, if it's World of Warcraft, for example, if you have something that's pushing towards, the Horde or the other faction, I don't know, I don't play that game, but
the Alliance, it's the Alliance.
The Alliance, something like that, then that helps you on, and that also makes the grinding more palatable, which I think is ultimately something you need, because even if the gameplay is good, it will eventually get old.
Yes.
So, I'm of two minds, because at one point I think grinding shows that it by itself is not good enough. Whereas at the same time, like I said, it's also like a litmus test to let you know that the combat is good and it's worth pushing towards the next one. The next objective that you have. So,
what about you, Shawn?
So I'm gonna disagree with Esteban here.
What? What's wrong with you?
Okay,
cut him out. Cut him. I'm just playing.
All right. Well, here's the thing about it, because whenever you were talking about the Dragon Quest and like how the grind works in that, I was thinking about an example that I think that I really liked. You might say it's overhyped or whatever, but I like how Breath of the Wild, even though it's more or less more action adventure than an actual RPG, I consider that, looking at that, how I would look at an RPG. Because
I mean it has RPG elements, so sure.
Yeah. While you can go in and face Ganon, with level 1 stuff with nothing but the shorts on your ass, you can go in and do these very things to help build yourself up, whether it's your stamina or your, getting different weapons or building your health up, or going on these 4 different quests so that you can unlock the champions that will help you out in the final battle. So you can either go in there right now and be like, I've got this wooden sword, Ganon's going to die. Or you can say, no, I'm going to make sure he's dead once and for all. And that kind of made me think, well, that and the grinding that I do in games like Pokemon, how is that, in my opinion, more fun than your random RPG? Like, I'm going to use Final Fantasy as an example. because I don't enjoy grinding that game, or maybe Dragon Quest. What makes it different? And this is where I agree with Esteban here. It's because of the battle system. Because anytime I would complain about, a game being like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this again and again and again and again. It's because I'm doing the same exact thing. I'm facing the same exact enemies, facing them the same exact way. It's basically less me playing a game and more me, okay, button, 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 done. Mm-hmm. Give me my, to experience and let me go on my way.
Yep.
So the reason I bring up Breath of the Wild is because unlike maybe in Dragon Quest where you might fight a slime and then, here's a red slime. Oh, here's a steel slime. What are you going to do now? Be like, I'm going to kill him the same way, probably. Whereas a game like that, like I said, not typically an RPG, but it had the different puzzles in different ways where you can get new materials, where you can build yourself up. In Pokemon, you don't have to face it with the same Pikachu that you get at the beginning of the game. You can, switch out different Pokemon and face things the same different way, and level them up. Not just going in random battles. You can go in, face some of your old opponents. You can go to, the special tower to get that done. And I also bring up Pokemon in one other aspect, and what makes grinding more fun, in my opinion, and that's the multiplayer aspect of it.
I was gonna say, I think that's the one thing about Pokemon that makes it a little bit more acceptable, because it's not just player versus the computer; it's player versus player as well.
Yeah. So you can go over to a friend's house and be like, "Oh, my team's gonna beat your team," and then after that, you're just like, "Oh, well, next time I'm gonna face you. I'm going to beat you." It's just like, "Yeah, all right, fight me, scrub," and then your mom calls you home for dinner. But it's like that aspect of it that I feel like minimizes that feeling of again, and more of, yeah, let's do this. So
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Did you just get that message right now too?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
That was just an odd little blip, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, but very interesting.
That's basically what I feel like. I feel like if your battle system is good, if it's enjoyable, if it's varied enough, it will take a poor grinding experience, no matter how long it's going to be, and make it a great grinding experience. Just whatever you do, game developers, if you're listening to me out there, this is one thing you do not do. You do not do the Final Fantasy III grinding experience, where the only way to level up is to use skills, and the only way to get more health is to die.
I don't think that's 3. I think that's 2.
Is that 3 or 4?
It's definitely not 4.
I think it's 3.
I can't remember which one. Honestly, I can't remember which one.
Where you only level up a skill if you use it, and you only level up your health by getting hit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 2.
2?
That's 2. That's
I knew
definitely
it was an
2.
early one.
3 is the one that got ported to the DS in those weird 3D chibi forms, and I remember 3 because that was the very first Final Fantasy to have the class system.
Oh yeah.
Where specifically it was, they took the idea from the first one, and instead of it being an upgrade, now it was like, you can pretty much switch out your class whenever you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah. No, 2 is the one where they're like, you can, you use this skill over and over again, it will level up, and that's the only way to do it. And if you get hit all the time, then you will get better health, more hit points, and then that just led to people throwing rocks at each other in that game just to level up. And
right.
as a result, you were either way underpowered if you decide not to do that and try to play the game legitimately, or you're way overpowered because you just spent 5 hours in the beginning of the game throwing rocks at each other,
Getting smashed.
And then you go to the first boss and you're like, I want to beat you up on 3,000 hit points. And you're like, man, I'm 20,000, bitch.
It's like you've hit so many things with different rocks. It's just like you just pick up a rock and just like, this thing will take you out in one hit. Fight me.
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever you do, don't do that. That's
that whole game.
Good.
That whole game was. This is helping.
Yeah, that's kind of hard. That's kind of hard to do.
Okay. And I can see your point, Shawn. There's definitely exceptions to the rule. Let me put it that way. There are exceptions to the rule where the battle system by itself is good enough to withstand the game, even if it doesn't have a great story. Pokemon is actually a good example of that. Pokemon doesn't really have a good story. It doesn't, and every single game is just save the world from this Team Rocket ripoff. And then usually that's not even the main story, because that usually gets resolved around or at the end of the last gym battle, and then the main focus just becomes you once again like going through the last four, and then you become the ultimate Pokemon champion of that region.
Yeah.
So even that gets resolved before like the end of the game. So
there you go.
Yeah. So
way to go, Riders.
So yeah, no, that's fair. There's a good example. I guess I was giving an example of how they can screw that up, and it probably isn't fair too, because I gave an example of an old game before these kind of rules were set in stone, and we had figured out what works and what doesn't. You know.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, I don't think they've figured it out. I really don't. Just mainly because, and it's weird now to even talk about it, just mainly because the genre itself has grown so much in terms of what we consider a role-playing game, thanks to tech and game engines and all this other kind of stuff. Just the whole genre itself has so many other genres that have meshed, that now that we have games like The Witcher that are like considered a role-playing game, when it's it's kind of hard to say it is, it's kind of hard to say it isn't. And yet the way you go about that game in terms of handling grinding, whatever you want to call it, the grinding, side quests, whatever, is one of the best experiences I've had in a so-called role-playing game in quite a long time. But on the flip side, that's kind of a single player, it's story driven experience, but you still have so many MMOs that are out there of different types or whatever, where that whole grinding experience is necessary to the fabric of what is an MMO. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's inescapable. It's one of those things where if you're going to get into one of those games, the whole grinding like switch in your brain, you just have to, whether or not you have an opinion on it, it's almost like you have to switch it off. You have to be like, okay, I hate grinding. I know, but I'm about to play this MMO. Whatever. I'll just play it. It's like you have to switch it off, because it's like you almost can't get away from it in those kind of games, because you're expected to spend days and months, leveling up to level 2000, whether you're, playing against the computer and against other players, and raids and special events and all this other kind of stuff. You have to be in it constantly all day for so long that the grinding in that game is almost, it's standard almost.
Yeah. In some ways I feel like that's true. Like, grinding is such a integral part of not just MMOs, but still a lot of RPGs in general. Even in like something like Skyrim, you're gonna have to kind of go around and whack things on the head to do that. I specifically remember playing Oblivion, and I would just jump all the way to where I was going
Jump
to increase my
Yep.
acrobatics skill, right?
Yep.
Or just like while I was walking somewhere, I was constantly casting like a mysticism spell to raise that, something like that.
Casting a light spell during the daytime just to cast it.
Yeah, just to do it. I don't need all this light, but right. But at the same time, we keep on having titles that challenge that. There's an MMO called Absolver. I don't know if you've heard of this.
Yeah, I've got that.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's an MMO where the mechanics are that of a fighting game almost.
Yes.
But I guess you have random encounters in that game, I suppose. But that's what I mean. It's kind of weird because it's not as random as it may seem. And
it's almost like, well, it's definite. Honestly, I've played it. The encounters aren't random at all. It's almost like you know exactly where each one of your AI combatants are always going to be. They'll just regenerate in that same location, in that same area after a while. Now, I guess the strength of them sometimes varies a little bit, but they're pretty much the same dudes in the same place. All you got to do is just walk away for a few minutes and come back, and they're pretty much there.
Yeah.
We'll see. There you go, though. That's what I mean. So, like, there's plenty of games that are like challenging this idea of grind, because the other thing about that game is you don't necessarily have to like stick in one area or whatever just to make sure that you're fighting the same guy over and over again so that you can be strong enough to move forward and defeat that area's, boss, so to speak. There's things challenging that. There's even what I guess I'll say is that I said it before, RPGs were very much structured around the Dungeons and Dragons formula, but RPGs changed significantly once we figured out that these games don't have to be turn-based.
Yeah, definitely.
Once that happened, that's why it's so hard to pinpoint exactly what is an RPG now with a lot of games, because once that happened, then it went, oh, well then it can be anything. That's why we have games like The Witcher and Skyrim and even like weird stuff like like Breath of the Wild. Technically, I mean, yeah, we call it an action adventure game, but it's got a lot of RPG elements now. You got different outfits that you can wear, and they give you different stat boosts if you like wear a certain combination of them, and you make your own type of potions, essentially, which is food. Although potions are also in there. I guess I would call that an action adventure game because of the open worldness of it. But, there's a lot of RPG in that game too. And that's why it's so hard to hammer down. And as a result, that's why I also think there's got to be probably a better way of doing grinding. Because this is a very old concept from Dungeons and Dragons that's still in this new version of RPGs that doesn't even need turn-based stuff anymore.
And it's kind of hard if you think about it, because, almost to your point with the battle system and everything, there's just some games where the whole system is bent around the grind, like Absolver. The whole system of that game is based on you have to fight a lot of different people, because in order for you to grow, you have to learn specific moves. Mm-hmm. And every person that you fight, you have to continue to fight a person that has that fighting style in order to learn a specific move. So you have to block that specific move or dodge that specific move a certain number of times before you can learn that move. And then you can decide to add that or not add that move to your own move set and everything, right? Mm-hmm. So that in itself it basically says that in that game system you have to grind in order. That's a part of that particular game structure. Same thing with like Diablo. There's little to no story in that game. It's all about blow through everything to, Diablo at the end of the game, but you're not going to be able to do it until you get through the massive hordes of crap that's in the way. You're just grinding through, slashing and blasting through everything in your way, arcade style. And yet it's still in RPG because of the inventory system, the stat boosting, the, loot changing and all that other kind of stuff. But, it's a non-turn-based, RPG that's full-fledged arcadey, real-time, just battle system.
I don't know what those type of games are technically called. I think they're called CA RPGs. I don't know. Computer action RPGs.
Something.
because normally those types of games don't like work on platforms because it's all mouse-based.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The third one actually did work relatively well. I actually liked it better.
But they had to change it. They had to change how that game controlled completely in order to do it.
Right, and that was the whole point. Yeah, that was the whole point. They were like, because I even tried the first one on the first Diablo on, I think that was the first PlayStation.
Yeah,
and it actually did work pretty well. Because I played that one primarily. It was this. I think it was the second one they decided not to put on the console. Yeah. But yeah, you've got games that are built around the grind. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty certain you could say like Neverwinter Nights or World of Warcraft. Those are built 100% around the grind. There's some story in there, there's a couple of stories sprinkled in here and there, but for the most part, it's all about, hey, look at my new shinies. Can you see my new shinies? Oh, you have that. Where'd you get that? Oh, I beat Big Boss Man over there, with like 15 other people. You gonna come with me? Yeah. And you just go through it. That's kind of, that's kind of what some developers just kind of build into their game. They say, you know what? We want those people that don't mind the grind and just want to live in our game. So let's build our system specifically for that,
Yeah. And I can see that it's like something in the background.
Right. Something in the background to sprinkle in there so that your character can do Fortnite dances for the other 30 minutes that you're playing the game.
If we're looking at grinding and just like how it's changed, because it's gotten to the point where many games have RPG elements built into it, to the point where you have so many action adventure games that have crafting into it. Like the Tomb Raider reboot, you craft in a bunch of new bows and gear and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. The new Spider-Man game that came out, that has RPG elements in it too. You level up, you get experience, you have random encounters in terms of the crimes that you fight. Mm-hmm. You have other games that lean into it a little bit more, like Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War, and as well as the BioShock series. They lean into it a little bit more as well. Mm-hmm. So kind of working off of that, the reason why it's more digestible in some of those games is because the action and the gameplay in it distracts you from the fact that you have to do a lot of things very repetitively. And that's basically how you eliminate and how you change the grinding aspect of it.
Go ahead.
One of the core things about it is the fact that you level up and that you gain more skills and that you power yourself up. But saying that you have to grind in order to get that done, saying that just kind of, almost defeats the purpose for a lot of people, saying, well, I want to play an RPG, but I don't have hours to sink into it so that I can mash the same buttons over and over.
Yeah.
But if you say, okay, well, you don't have to do this, you can just have these varied styles of gameplay. If you don't have to fight 12 dudes to get through this dungeon, you can solve a couple of puzzles, and there you go, you have knowledge points or whatever.
Yeah.
Or you can do some swimming and it builds up your arms, something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
It's that varied styles of gameplay. It's just like, oh, I'm tired of swimming right now, let me do some puzzles. I'm tired of puzzles, let me fight a couple of bad guys. I'm fighting bad guys, I just want to soak up the sun and boost my vitamin D count. I don't know. But it's things like that where it's just like, you are still grinding, you're still doing activities to build yourself up, but it doesn't have to be the same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And because you can switch between task A to task B to task C to task D and then back and forth again, it kind of makes you feel like you're less grinding and more of doing different things to help build yourself up.
Yeah.
I've kind of seen that kind of aspect with a lot of the survival games that they've come out with now. I mean, for the most part, those are purely action first-person shooter type games, and yet they're all built in the same way, I guess you could say, as Skyrim or one of the Elder Scrolls games are. They're all built on that RPG framework where you're leveling up. You're, as you, just like in Ark, if you just stand there on the beach for like a good 30 minutes, you don't even have to do anything. You stand there for like 30 minutes or so and not die, your character goes up a level just for standing there, and he gets experience for breathing. But, there's plenty of other tasks, whether it's the building or finding blueprints or taming a dinosaur or crafting this or farming this or, all those different other tasks. There's all different kinds of things that you can do where you get tired of this, go do this. You get tired of that, go do that. It sets it up exactly the same way, Shawn was talking about. In a lot of those survival games, they're feasting off of that kind of a template nowadays.
Yeah. And even going back to the old Dungeons and Dragons framework that was originally set out, that the only way you could level up is through an encounter, through fighting. Okay. But because we have these different gameplay styles, because we have these different ways of gaining different ways of experience, you can sit out in the sun and get some random perk. You can have these different levels of gameplay that is not just fight something, get experience.
Yeah. I was going to say earlier, I think the other reason for this is because a lot of it is paced differently. A lot of it now is like you need to get from here to here, and we know that you're probably going to have 3 or 4 encounters along the way. So we'll make sure that you get enough of what you need to deal with this place that you're going to be going to within those 3 or 4 encounters. So you never have to like come back and do something that you've already done in order to get it. Typically.
Yeah, if it's done right.
Yeah, typically. And done right, this is what I mean. It depends on what you want. The other part of this too is that if you do that, then you'll usually be just powerful enough to be able to deal with the threat, and therefore it'll be an even match. So you'll be challenged at the same time. That also stops you though, however, from like doing what Shawn would probably do and try to over level, right? So it also prevents you from doing that. So in some ways, depending on how the game is structured, like this would probably be something like maybe a BioShock would have to deal with its RPG type mechanics. You're not going to have a lot of very different ways in order to play the game in that regards. You get the variety in those type of games is the different type of weapons you have and how you want to deal with whoever it is you're fighting. Whereas, even though you can break the game with over leveling or something in the game, you that's your choice. It's your decision, and it goes more into the RPG role playing game element of it's up to you if you want to do that. You can choose to underlevel yourself and give yourself a challenge and see if maybe you want to have a really difficult time with this boss. However you want. But yeah, there are, I think, the more linear games, maybe I would say, that have RPG elements, or just RPGs that are more linear in general. Your Final Fantasy 13, for example, where it's just made for you to experience this journey however way that the developers wanted you to have it. And sometimes that's good because they can balance it really well, or you can see it as a bad thing because you don't have the freedom to do something else. But
yeah, as games get bigger,
yeah. I don't know. I guess
kinds of things, different aspects to it to kind of spice things up, I guess you could say.
I guess at the end, I can say is grinding is a thing. It is a tool that we can use, and it's not inherently bad like some people might think. Like, this is, oh, I got to do this over and over again. Why? It doesn't necessarily have to be that. It could be good and it could be done right. But I do also feel, like I was saying before, I'm surprised there's not something else, another tool we could be using in its place.
Yeah. And it also comes to how you play an RPG too, not just with the underlevel overleveling thing, but do you play an RPG where you take a weekend and you sit down and play put 20, 30 hours into it, or do you say, I'm bored, I'll pop it in, get an hour in, maybe go through a few random battles, maybe level up, I don't know. But I do feel like you said, Esteban, we do have a different way of doing that. It doesn't have to be the same thing for every RPG. Even in, the more action RPG oriented things, you still have, okay, let me see if I can find a couple of small things to kill so I can level myself up.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that. We can find other ways of going around that. And I feel
that's right. Give me the Uber stuff at the beginning of the game so I can kill everything easily. It's very simple. That's all you got to do. Just give me the lightsaber at the beginning of Final Fantasy so I can slash through everything. Bingo, problem solved. Thank you very much. Cut.
I mean, it depends on what you want. And you know what? Honestly, I would say for somebody who just wants to get through the story and experience the story, yeah, do that. You're supposed to be a badass anyway, right? So just plow through the game.
You are the person that is called Chosen One.
Yeah.
I'm always the Chosen One. It just happens like that every time I turn a game on. The Chosen One. Go do this. Okay.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Is that an episode?
That's about that's about as much grinding as I can grind on this grinding topic.
How about you, Shawn?
I think we've ground this one to dust.
Oh, that was good. That was good. See, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we do here. That's what we do. We do massive transitions, and oh man, that's just awesome. That's great. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we would definitely like to know examples that you guys like and don't like when it comes to grinding. Let us know. Tweet at us, leave comments, do whatever it is that you like that brightens our day and lets us know what your opinions are on this, because we'd love to know. Hey, maybe if enough of you give us something to work with, maybe we'll do another app to talk about it, discuss it, let you guys all know. So I guess round table, we go around, tell everybody what we're getting ready to do. What about you, Esteban?
Hello. Coming up the pipe for me, I mentioned this before. They haven't gone up yet, but I am reviewing the original Spyro trilogy. Those reviews should be going up. I don't know. They will be all up before the Reignited trilogy goes up, though. So expect to see them popping up next month and the first half of November. I still don't know which dates, but they will definitely be up between those times. My gaming landscape has been going good, going up at the end of every week on Fridays. Moving the time to Fridays at 5 p.m. as opposed to 9 to give me more time to do that. Let me see what else. Videos are still going up. Let's Plays of Alice Madness Returns and Sonic Adventure DX. You can check those out on Mondays and Thursdays respectively at 12 p.m. on my channel, youtube.com/colorwind. I stream Yakuza Kiwami 2 on Twitch. I'm going to try to be doing it at 5 now. I keep changing the time. It's hard because life gets in the way.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, right? But yeah, I'm going to try to be doing that at 5. I'm going to try that time actually tomorrow. So check that out if you like. And other than that, yeah, just follow me everywhere on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Hey Colorwind. They're all over the place. Everywhere you want to look me up on Pinterest, it's Hey Colorwind too. Whatever. So, yeah, that's me.
And something to his board, people.
How about you, Shawn?
Right now, I'm in the middle of. I do have plans for some videos coming out. I plan on reviewing Spider-Man that just came out. I'm also going to be doing a kind of overview of my thoughts on Insomniac games, kind of like how I feel about those games before the Reignited trilogy comes out. So you can expect that. Right now, I'm just in the middle of trying to gather up everything, trying to make sure how I want the layout and everything to go through. So it might take a little bit of time. I might just throw that review up and also have a gameplay video of the Battlefield 5 beta. That's going to be going up as well. So just be on the lookout for that. And if you have any ideas or anything else, you can always follow me on Twitter. It's at LowBigHam. And you can find me on YouTube. It's Jonathan Studios. So I might change a few things up, try to get everything under the same banner. But hey, you can still follow me everywhere you go. But most importantly, BJ, what do you got for us?
I'm working on nothing right now. No, that's a lie. Right now, I'm really trying to refocus. I got to get a bunch of articles done, a bunch of articles written for various sites. So kind of keep your ears to the Twitter sphere, I guess. It's probably the right way to go about it, because every time I write something, I tend to at least drop a tweet about it. So definitely follow me there first, because that's where a lot more of my activity is broadcast. As for broadcasting, goodness, I've made a lot of plans to try to stream in the last few months, and they have been unsuccessful. But I'm hoping, I want to say probably by around my birthday, which is like in the beginning of October. I'm thinking stuff will settle down to where I can reliably be able to stream at least once a week, at least, hopefully more. But we'll see. The whole family thing is killing me right now. I love my family. I love kids. But yes, definitely follow me on Twitter. That's probably where you'll find a lot, if not all of my activity. Go anywhere else in social media or Twitter, YouTube, even Mixer. Find Bunny 3000. Is there. That is me. Type the same way, written the same way. Do.
And what sites are those that you're writing those articles for?
Golly. Heed Mag, fanbros.com. Those are the primary ones. There's some other random ones that I don't even remember their names. But and I apologize, but as I get them done, like I said before, I pretty much will broadcast them on Twitter, on Facebook, and everything. So, follow me wherever there's a Bunny 3000, and you'll get the digs on everything that is up in here.
And real quick, I just realized that I forgot to say this. I said my YouTube channel, but I did not say my Twitch channel when I was talking about the streaming. Twitch.tv/HeyColorOne. It's the same as everything else.
Yes.
There you go.
Do that, as well as follow the Shaded Pixels podcast. All of our little digs over that way or that way. Is it that way?
There you go.
That way?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do these. Mm-hmm. Follow all this. Subscribe. Follow. All them juicy tidbits of social media stuff. You know what all y'all.
And there's also an audio version. An audio version of the podcast. I don't have the link there.
Yes.
Sorry, I'll fix that.
We'll copy the link and we'll have the link in like the YouTube posting of the video someplace. Yeah. It'll all be there so that all you lovely people in audio world on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, you'll be able to listen to this gorgeous voice and other dudes all the time. Download it on your audio device as you sit on the toilet, drive to work, drive from, whatever it is you do podcast. Either way, as I said before.
Soothing sound of BJ's voice.
Yes.
I know I would.
That's what you need, ladies and gentlemen. And in case you forgot, we are the Shaded Pixels podcast. Bunny 3000, Esteban, Shawn Richards. Ladies and gentlemen, we are Ghost. Thank you for listening. Deuces.